very much.
A full house at the gym at Burton Academy got to feel the burn. Senator Bernie Sanders came to Manchester on Tuesday, November 22nd, to talk about American politics in the wake of the recent presidential election. He was also there to promote a new book he has written called Our Revolution. The event was hosted and sponsored by the Northshire Bookstore. Over the course of more than an hour, Sanders discussed why Donald Trump won the presidency and touched on a number of issues going forward, like wage inequality, the environment, and health care, that he thinks will be important to continue addressing.
And then last year, Carrier and United Technologies announced that they were leaving Indianapolis, Indiana. They were throwing 2,100 workers out on the street, and they're moving to Monterrey, Mexico, to employ people there for $3 an hour. Now, if you're a worker who's worked at Carrier, has earned decent wages, who saw a CEO get a $171 million severance package, knows that the companies today are profitable in Indiana, and this happens all over the country, how do you think you would feel about a political system? Do you think that the politicians stood up for you, or did they cave in to the CEOs whose greed has no end? So all over this country, if you are a male worker, you are making less in real adjusted inflation income today than you made 43 years ago. You're working your backside off, you're worried about your kids, you're making less money. Are you bitter? Are you angry? You have every right in the world to be bitter and to be angry. So I think that is one of the reasons that Mr. Trump did so well among those people.
He also directed a few questions to the audience, zeroing in on the large crowd of students, and also answered some questions that had been submitted in advance. After the senator's speech, several who heard it stopped to comment on what they thought about his talk.
Just the fact that it took place in a high school and so many young people are so inspired and were so enthusiastic. And they had some very tough questions for the senator. I thought that was really impressive.
Have you gone out and bought his book yet?
It's in my bag, of course.
I found his beginning really interesting because he was focusing on why, as a nation, we have shared concerns and made us aware of the siloization of the country. And I found that really interesting because it was what he's always been doing, which is finding ways to get us all on the same page so that we do move forward in a constructive manner. So, and then he ended on the same note. It's very powerful.
Someone who's a school board member, I imagine you were probably interested in the points he was making about education and upgrading the skills of today's younger generation. Is that something that you folks talk a lot about on your school board meetings?
He mentioned things that we have been talking about for the 10 years that I've been on the board. We talk about creating a small school model that can be a guide to the entire state for how you run schools, so that our state can be a guide to the entire nation. So these are things that we have been doing, and as you well know, because you've been involved in the community, these are things that we all have been collectively been working towards. It is so nice when one of our national politicians actually understands that there are movements and supports them.
I felt that Senator Sanders, did very well in calling to the young people in the crowd and really emphasizing how it is going to be our duty to our country to look into such areas as natural resources and how reservations are being treated, and especially on how to heal ourselves as a country.
Okay. Ramsey, what was your reaction?
Yeah, just along those lines, it was such an honor to have Senator Sanders come to the school. It was glad to have him, it's just interesting to hear his take. Not only has the Democratic Party being ushered into a new age because of Mr. Sanders' efforts, but also our country's moving forward into a new age. With the election of Donald Trump, which was, I'm sure a scary thing for many people my age. But it's also good to hear that Senator Sanders has a plan for this future and that we can trust him in his leadership in the Senate. So it was great to hear from him, and on all these issues, it's going to take a lot of work from both the youth and our United States senators and representatives to get the job done.
Well, Bernie, I think, had his wonderful effervescence and tenacity and charisma, and it was wonderful to be here and see him. He's certainly a motivation and a wonderful guy. I wish he had spoke a little bit more about the bottom word in his book, revolution, from a peaceful involvement level. What can we do now to get it going? I think that's important for us to figure it out now that we're over the disappointment, and taking some of the anger I guess we have, but to take it in a positive way, to do some really good things to move ahead. But it was wonderful to be here, wonderful to see him. I was going to ask him a key question. I didn't have a chance about the Supreme Court, and I looked it up, and constitutionally, Andrew, we're only bound, to my understanding, of having 6. 6 is written in the Constitution. We've had as few as 5 historically, and as many as 10. We have 8 now. So I was going to ask him to please take this tenacity and perseverance to the rest of the Democrats and filibuster what he can for the last one that they feel they need, which they do not. You don't need 9, you don't need 8. And let's hope that some of the elderly ones that we have do not pass away. But constitutionally, my understanding, we only need 6. Okay. So I'm going to write to him and see what he says.
I really enjoyed it. I'm a big Bernie fan, and it was great to hear him maintaining momentum.
Okay. Any point in particular that he said that had a bigger impact than another on you?
Yeah, the tone of hope. It was fantastic that he was pushing forward as if we can get through this, and that was great for me to hear right now.
Thank you so much.
For the GNet TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.